Welcome back everybody. Today I'll be going over the major update details for epicseven, which includes releases across February and March. This update includes significant improvements to the guild, summoning, arena, new content additions, and so much more. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So the first thing that we were showcased is the new guild, and this includes a lot of visual changes initially. The guild lobby has been redesigned to improve, of course, both the visual and convenience aspects of the system. The lobby background is more open and grand, as you can see on screen. And in addition to this, there are also different states to the guild. For example, when Guild War is inactive, the main gate is closed. But when Guild War is active, the gate is open, and I guess this is supposed to insinuate the idea that you're mobilizing, you're trying to get or rile up the troops, which I think is a nice touch overall. Additionally, you can now access certain details or certain functions straight from the guild lobby itself. This includes customizations as well, including wall decorations, banner decorations, and a new cafe area sort of decoration. Now again, to add to this, guilds that place first, second, or third in the guild tournament will also have special decorations displayed in the lobby, which is pretty cool. But these changes, of course, are really supposed to enhance or touch up what was otherwise a pretty old system in epicseven. Now, as we move to the next section, the guild donation system has been removed, and with it, the guild master shop has also been gotten rid of entirely as well. Previously, donations allowed you to, of course, get currency, which you can then purchase things from a shop with, but that has all been removed, including the commander armbands. However, the system is now a daily button press, or rather, the system because the system was more of a meaningless sort of one button press action, they've basically removed this, and they've instead changed it to now give you things like guild currencies. So now you have things like glory crests and proof of courage that will be converted into guild exp, and in addition to this, any proofs of courage that you have will instead convert into commander armbands at a rate of 1 to 5. Now, master shop rewards will now be obtainable through a new central supply box, but this and a lot of the new systems are basically put in together or kind of packaged together into the new guild mastery system. Now, if we take a look at this system specifically, you'll see that there's a lot of new UI and systems shown off. The first of the changes, I guess, that you'll notice is first the cap being increased from level 20 to 30, and with it, a new guild mastery system, I guess, is also being introduced. By participating in the guild activities, you can increase said mastery rank, and you unlock things like, again, the central supply box that we mentioned or touched on earlier, increased Orbis heart purification currency, and so much more, including things like guild shops and Guild War revival effects. Now, these basically are designed to make the guild feel more rewarding and honestly like you're a part of the action, which is always welcome. But future updates will also introduce lighter guild content to actually strengthen community or I guess involvement, so that it's not just a log in and log out sort of thing. Now, as we move to the guild tournament, this is something that we've actually seen a little bit of earlier on, and there are, first and foremost, a couple of improvements coming to the guild tournament. First and foremost, again, you're going to have personal frames, and they will no longer be removed, which is something that I think players were definitely a bit confused about earlier. But in addition to this, there also, as you might have seen a bit earlier, or as I teased a little bit earlier, there's now a new Mystic Medal based reward that scales directly off of your tournament placing. Rank 1 gets 1,600 Mystic Medals per player, which is a crazy amount, to be honest. And the rewards, of course, as you can see here, extend down to rank 16. Now, to add to this, they've also improved the matchmaking of the tourney, and a spectator system is also going to be added so that players can watch the tournament progress in real time. Now, they've also changed things with the summons, which is pretty crazy. With it, though, the main thing that you can probably, or that you'd basically want to keep an eye out for the summons, is the fact that they are not only improving how easy it is to see what is active and what I guess you're specifically summoning for, but this is alongside a new set of changes, including the friendship summon removal. If you guys were someone that would I guess in the past used to summon these for fodder. They've gotten rid of the system entirely, and now the friendship mechanic, as you can see here, is now designed to give you a couple things, including what you've already had in the past, which is the free 40 energy and the 5 flags, but now you can directly convert this into artifact charms, of which you, of course, you get 3 per, I think it's 3 per week. Yeah, 3 per week. There we go. In any case, they've also added a new auto sell feature, which I think is pretty cool. If you're someone that has been pulling like I have for like years at this point, you probably have so few, honestly, inventory slots or hero slots in your bag, or in your, I guess, in your inventory or in your garrison. But the issue with this though is that despite how many times you would move them in and out of the storage system, it ended up being more useful in most cases to just leave them in the storage box upon summoning and filling up your box to maximum, rather than actually fixing the core problem, which is that, again, you have so many heroes and really some of them you just don't need. Now, I do want to caveat this, that unlike other gacha games, epicseven is kind of unique in the sense that you may sometimes not, or you may actually in some cases want to keep some of these 3 or 4 star heroes alongside some of the artifacts, of which again you can categorize, but the idea here is, of course, that you don't want to, especially if you're maxed out or finished and you've built every character that you want, this will allow you to declutter or prevent your inventory from cluttering to begin with, which is pretty nice. But specifically for this news, they've also added 100 slots to the artifact inventory, which is pretty cool. But me personally, I think that, again, seeing something like this is quite helpful, as someone that especially has built 2 or 3 characters or 2 or 3 versions of a character and is now done permanently basically with building any other characters. Now, beyond this, we also have reductions to the summon cost, which is also honestly pretty crazy. With this, they've effectively reduced the effective summon cost of the Covenant summon. This means that the effective pity has been reduced from 120 summons to 110, and now they're also introducing a guaranteed artifact summon count at 145 summons, as you're seeing on screen right now, which is pretty crazy. At 250, you get a guaranteed reward item. In this case, I'm assuming it's the slate that they're showing on screen. This is honestly pretty huge. epicseven in general has already been regarded, and it has always been a very generous title, especially when it comes to gacha. So me specifically, I think this is pretty cool. I think this will only help for people that are trying to get back into epicseven, but I'm always a big fan of everything that they've shown anyways, so no big change here. You're gonna get characters even faster, and I guess this now allows you, of course, to pull for more characters that you'd like, though again, what you choose to pull for is a bit spotty and a bit dodgy right now, because it feels like every character is still as strong as you might have expected from before. Now, as we move to the rerun banner improvements, they've actually also changed things so that rerun banners will now refund bookmarks at 120 summons. And again, this will also effectively reduce the pity to 96 summons, which is pretty all right, I guess. But on top of this, they're also changing the Moonlight summons. So now you have a 30% summon cost discount for the first 30 summons. And these changes are, of course, designed to kind of make these light and dark units more accessible and reduce the FOMO of trying to pull for characters. But all of these changes will come to epicseven live on February 19th. Now, beyond this, they've also they've also introduced, or I believe they're also introducing this new artifact, which again is supposed to be the 3F equivalent. As far as I understand, this is probably going to be pretty cool, but honestly, I know a lot of players are a bit 50-50 about how they feel about the class summon. If you're someone that's missing 3F, you probably have felt the pain of like a Karina or a Bellion or someone not activating their 3F. But whether or not doing it through a class summon is a popular idea, that's really not the topic of today's video, though I do want to say that though the system or the execution of class summon may be something that people are not huge fans of, being able to eventually get some of these old collab artifacts in any way, shape, or form, I think is personally pretty cool. So I'm excited for this, though again, I know there may be a bit of skepticism for this. Now, they're also improving Arena, and with this, losses from offense and defensive or from defense defeats have been reduced at champ rank and above, and the idea, I believe, from this, or at least that they've described, is to make ranked ranking easier. I don't exactly know how to feel about this. To be honest, the reason for this is because it feels like every time that they've changed the rank distribution or the arena distribution, it kind of muddies everything. Sometimes they'll make a change to arena and suddenly the rank 1 player will go to 25 billion quadrillion stat line, or like to 25 quadrillion billion points above everyone else. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes the change is great. Sometimes the great, a change that they make is awful, and it's really hard to peg a lot of times. I'm going to be optimistic towards the change that they have here. If the rank progression here makes it so that you're able to, I guess, clear or do your arena dailies easier, I guess this will be a net positive. But I think them saying that making rank progression easier is not necessarily what they think it'll be, because if like the enemies that you fight, or if climbing is easier for everybody, then that effectively makes it easier for nobody, because now like the people that are above you are going to climb at a faster pace, and if you aren't playing nearly as much as them, again, I'm not really sure what that'll do for the system as a whole. But to add to this, they've also introduced a new system for the arena defense, and this will show you high success rate team compositions against enemy defenses. This might be a bit of a bait though, because again, there are a lot of tricky players on the ladder. Now, again, you can copy these compositions directly, which is pretty cool. But again, whether or not you will actually do or use this, I think is kind of neither here nor there. Now, they've also added some other miscellaneous changes, including refreshing opponents up to 5 days will no longer break your win streaks. And on top of this too, random defense placement will now only apply starting at Emperor rank, which I guess is fine for people that are in champ below, but it kind of feels like Emperor is a little bit like the old champion. Again, it's a bit of a confusing system at the moment. Now, to top all this off, they're also introducing new, or rather additional slots to arena, and this is something that I think people have been waiting for a long time, because sometimes you do just have to take a different team into a different lineup, which is just life for arena. Having these 20 slots I think is really nice, and them in the past, I think at this point it's been months, but them changing the team slots to not overlap just for specific content, but rather now each individual piece of content having their own set of teams, I think is really nice. And it's also really decluttering, again, for your visual and also for your actual account. But can only say that this is obviously pretty interesting. It's always going to be nice whenever you add quality of life to arena. But next, they're basically introducing, or they've announced, new content. This is a continuation of the Orbis tournament story, which I think is pretty cool. They got a bit of an animation and some details for this, and as far as I understand, the reception towards the story has been pretty well received, honestly. This story, however, takes place at the main tournament stage of the future Tactical Command Headquarters. And on top of this, players can now equip up to 5 tactical devices that allows a bit more strategy, which I think is cool. In truth, this is, well, something that I was a bit distracted by when I was going through said content. And for me, I'm personally a huge fan of Ruiza. I can only really like stop and stare and appreciate how cool of a design this is. Now, again, I wouldn't normally sit here and go gaga over the character, especially before we've really seen too much about the character. But I mean, just appreciate like literally the design that you're seeing here. Now, again, I have seen the comments, people mentioning how this might seem right. Sorry, did I say Ruiza? I apologize. But this character looking so similar to some of the more military characters of old, including the Conqueror Lilius, are absolutely amazing. It's definitely one of the favorite designs that I've seen so far. And though I personally understand that, yeah, in theory, you probably aren't going to use this character as a DPS, which I'll touch on later as we break down her kit. The reality is that just the design alone is something that I'm a big fan of, though again, I think there are some players that have equated or have kind of drawn similarities to Ruiza to Lidica, which is, I think, justifiable, especially with the whip sword sort of aesthetic. But I think she looks pretty cool. I'm excited for her, and we'll break down her kit in a little while. Now, on top of this, there are other characters that we've seen too, and this is the new Kali. This is tactical model Kali. looks pretty cool. Brina's definitely dead in a ditch somewhere at this point. And there's also some other characters that they've also teased and introduced as well. But for me, just the 2 characters that we've seen so far are pretty cool. But in terms of, I guess, just the content of this, they've showcased a bit, or they teased a bit. But personally, I'm also pretty excited for new changes, not just to the story, but also for the world arena. Again, they've also teased a few things here, including other heroes or new characters being introduced or teased too. But a lot of these characters I'll let simmer and boil, as we haven't really seen much about them outside of, again, some of these animations. Kali, again, super cool, crazy model design, but even this art, absolutely fantastic. As we move forward though, I did want to touch on the world arena changes. Wait, is it where's the... Okay, I can't find exactly where it was, but the soul count visibility has been improved, now displaying exact numbers instead of rounding, which is so helpful. I cannot even believe that this was a thing for years, but literally, if you did not just internalize how many souls you'd get per character, you would just be guessing and praying that you know, you have enough souls for like a soul burn or for any sort of trickery or sort of planning, which again, if you just were familiar with them all to begin with, I guess it's fine. But this definitely felt a little annoying, as things like counterattacks, basic attacks, all these normal attacks like would offer different amounts of souls, which is okay, I guess. But me personally, I was really excited for that. But of course, they've also shown off, I guess, I don't know why I can't find this other one. They also teased the new World Arena skin. It's ML Poly, which looks pretty cool. Oh, here it is, sorry. So this new ML Poly skin looks absolutely fantastic. If you didn't see the little teaser for it, it is very dark looking. I'll let you appreciate it. But really, the you know, as per the World Arena skins, it's free, so there aren't too many changes, honestly, in terms of the animation. The little you know, the little, like, the doll from Politis has changed, and obviously she looks different in here. But this is definitely more of a visual change to the character than it is an animation change, which again is kind of par for the course. But on top of this, they've also introduced improvements to things like, if I'm not mistaken, the equipment crafting. Now you can do 2 fully enhanced gear pieces over 6 weeks, and substats can now be enhanced up to 4 times, which I mean, as far as I understand, this is kind of crazy. 4 times, I think, if I'm not mistaken, means that if you start with, I think you have to start at 5, then it's 9, 13, 17, 21 speed, I think, which is, I mean, whether or not you need speed at this point, well, okay, but you can see here it's, oh, sorry, 20 speed, there we go. But 20 speed piece though, 2 guaranteed 20 speed pieces over this is pretty crazy. But again, this is only the beginning of some of the additional events that they're talking about. They've also teased a bit of the esports event for 2026. This includes a $34,000 prize pool, direct qualification through the World Arena ranking, and the winners, of course, get qualification for the E7 World Championship event. On top of this, though, they've also changed the version schedule length, and with this, now we have the normal length of events going from 9 weeks to 6 weeks, and the next update will release, rather, one of the upcoming events will be on April 2nd, and this event will, or rather, this update will include a new episode, new systems, and major gameplay changes. Finally, though, they did also have coupons at the end, including, again, what you're seeing on screen. This is a lot. Of course, you're getting tons of energy, you're getting the charms, which is always nice. But on top of this, if I'm not mistaken, yes, if you use this code, you'll also get a special emoji, and honestly, pretty cool. I'm a big fan of DN, and of course, this also gives you 10 leaves, and it's a free code. But yeah, that was everything that epicseven had to offer in this new update. I did also want to touch on ML Politis for a moment. If I go to their channel, here we go. Okay, so Ruiza, apologies for the misspeak earlier, is pretty cool. If you just take a look at her design, the animation is just fantastic. You might be able to tell though from this whip sword sort of idea though, yes, she is a ranger just like Lidica, and she is also fire, but she does actually have a unique new mechanic herself. That said, the first thing you need to know about her stats wise is that she is 120 base speed, has no effectiveness in her kit, and otherwise has an okay amount of HP and defense, which should kind of hint towards what she has to offer. I do want to say, by the way, that her artifact art is crazy, and you'll definitely be a fan of it once you see it in a moment. But yeah, you can see she gives attack percent to the, attack percent to her team. She gives effectiveness to herself, which, if I'm not mistaken, this should be, I think this might actually just be Lidica's signs. I swear Lidica was faster though. I thought Lidica was 124 base speed. In any case, the point is she's an effectiveness character. She is supposed to buff the team, or she's supposed to offer a decent amount of value to the team. With this, her skill 2 reads, and also, by the way, huge shout out to the team for changing this now so that you can understand that this is 15% and that these skill enhances upgraded to 20%. This is literally something that I think I've been waiting for about like 6 years, and just so nice that they've done this. In any case though, S2 dispels 2 buffs from all enemies, and it decreases the combat readiness of the enemy by 20% before spreading the selected target debuffs. Now, this also grants a stealth to the caster for 2 turns, but spread specifically applies the debuffs inflicted on the enemy target to all enemies except for the target, which makes sense. Now, this is already pretty crazy, but I understand that you may be confused about this, for how she'll be able to use this. Yes, first and foremost, she does strip any buffs from the enemy. And again, if she has debuffs here, then she'll be able to spread said debuffs to the rest of the enemies, which is pretty crazy. And you're seeing here, again, this allows you to use this on characters that don't have immunity, basically. And even if they are, as far as I understand, or rather, so long as they don't have immunity, this will be pretty crippling to a team. As far as I understand though, this should still have to account for debuff checks, which is probably the reason why people will be using this character on, or will be building high effectiveness, at least from what I've seen, or at least from what I understand of the S2, because you again want to be able to remove any immunities if there are any, and then also be able to land this ability, demolition. Now, again, to be clear, this is it is an ability obviously that has 20 soul, ignore ER, but if you fight against characters like Bellion, or if you fight against characters like Arya, this isn't always something that you're going to be freely accessible, or you'll have access to. As a result, this ability is also pretty cool. So this ability attacks a single enemy. It dispels all buffs from the target and decreases the CR of said target by 50% rather, before a 100% chance to inflict laceration and silence for 2 turns. Now, this also increases the CR of the caster by 50%, and at the start of the first battle, it grants you stealth for 2 turns. Now, this effectively means you don't really need to use guiding light, which is fine. The artifacts, I don't want to say the artifact's outdated, but nowadays it feels like everyone is able to go into stealth by themselves, which is fine, whatever. But laceration as a buff is pretty cool. It increases damage suffered by 15%, and when the health of said target is reduced, it inflicts injuries equivalent to the amount of health reduced, and this of course only applies to heroes. Now, this basically is a different sort of debuff. This is, as far as I understand, the first time we've seen laceration. It's a damage dealing injury adjacent sort of debuff, as opposed to just a defense break or a bleed or a burn or anything like this, which I think is interesting. But what I think is even more powerful about demolition specifically is that, again, the way that this is supposed to work, or that the way that demolition works as a whole, is that you are not only lacerating, so increasing the amount of damage that said target will take, you're also silencing said target. And then if you move back to the skill 2 here, the idea here is that you're going to try and spread the target's debuffs. And as far as I can tell, even though this says that it's spreading, it's not an ignore ER effect here. Like, it's not guaranteed, so you'll still have to perform in effectiveness versus ER check. If that ends up being the case, or if it ends up being the case where it's just guaranteed, I think that's broken personally, because that basically means that you'll at most have to 50-50 the dispel, but then otherwise you can use this soul burn here to dispel all the buffs from the soul weaver or high ER target, and then spread, which is Again, pretty crazy. Now, this by itself may not be the most insane thing ever, as again, a silence doesn't mean that you can't attack against certain characters, but especially if you are a character who is very, very reliant on your skill 2 or skill 3, this feels pretty powerful. And again, laceration is nothing to scoff at. This does basically label it as a new unique art or a new unique effect that can stack with other things like defense break if you are trying to one-shot or deal, or cleave or be more aggressive towards enemies, which I think is pretty cool. Now, on top of this, the skill 1 is okay. It's about what you'd expect from an S1. It gives speed up to the caster. You can never, really never underestimate how impactful or how powerful this can be, by the way. Increased speed for a character is just super nice if you're trying to lap or if you're trying to end a fight in a 1v1. But on top of this, you also deal additional damage equivalent to 50% of injuries inflicted on the target. Not much else to say about this ability. It's pretty cool. The skill 1 is pretty impactful, and if you end up wanting to use a more impactful basic skill involved artifact, including things like like the defense breaks or even things like applying bomb, this could all be pretty nice. But again, we'll have to see, as her artifact, which we'll touch on in a moment, is pretty crazy too. So as you can see here, this is the artifact. Crazy art, by the way. This at max level gives you 20 effectiveness, and when you attack with a single attack except for your basic, it applies a decreased hit chance, so blind on the target for 2 turns, and this increases the CR of the ally in the back row by 30%. Now, this can only be activated once every 3 turns, but she does take a load of turns, so whether or not this is super crazy, kind of up for debate. Now, again, this by itself is already kind of a pretty impactful debuff. It is blind, right? And again, I get that this is 50-50, but being blind and silenced and having laceration on you is kind of really annoying to deal with. Now, again, whether or not this is going to work on some other characters or whether you'll be able to deal with certain anti or certain cleanse characters in the game is kind of neither here nor there. But the point here is that, of course, you are able to blind a target here with said artifact. You're also able to increase the combat readiness of the character in the back, which we've seen from a couple characters and a couple artifacts at this point. This does or could basically set up for like a cleave or some sort of one-shot, especially in something like Arena, which I think is pretty cool. But whether or not you choose to use this artifact or others, including, again, things like Elegaic Candle, I think it's called Elegaic Candle, to defense break on one character and spread, that's entirely up to you. Whether or not this artifact will be good, because sometimes you don't want to trigger too many debuffs. Maybe you might want to use something like a soul generating artifact or something that gives you more effectiveness, even more effectiveness than this, I should preface, is kind of dependent on when we actually see Ruiza. But in any case, guys, thanks again for watching. I think Ruiza and the update, I think, are pretty huge. I'm excited for how epicseven is kind of taking and approaching content. But yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good job, Smilegate.